Charles built his image on being the steady one, the reasonable one, the king who finally got it right after decades of waiting. But according to a growing wave of insider claims making the rounds right now, that image was hiding something much darker, and the person who exposed it wasn't a journalist or a royal biographer. It was his own son. Prince William reportedly stripped Camilla of her royal standing after being handed proof of what she'd allegedly been doing to his father behind closed doors for years. Before we get into how this unfolded, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next chapter of this story, because what happens later completely reframes everything you're about to hear. Let's start with what allegedly triggered all of it, because the timeline matters here. Sources describe an otherwise unremarkable Tuesday in early May, a routine strategy session at Clarence House, with Charles, Camilla, and a handful of senior aides going over calendar logistics. Nothing unusual, nothing that would suggest what came next. Then, according to multiple accounts, something shifted around mid-morning. Camilla allegedly rose from her chair and, without any lead-up, tore into Charles in front of the entire room. Witnesses claim the words included weak, gutless, and embarrassment, and that she accused him of constantly caving to William instead of standing his ground. If even part of that is accurate, this wasn't a private spat behind closed doors. This happened in front of the very people whose job is to protect the dignity of the crown. One person allegedly in the room described her tone as something that had clearly been sitting under the surface for a long time, not something that came out of nowhere. That detail alone should make you pause, because it implies a pattern rather than a one-time blow-up, and it raises the obvious question: what else had staff been quietly watching happen for years without saying anything? The reaction in the room was reportedly immediate silence. An aide mid-note apparently just stopped writing. Others suddenly found their laps very interesting, staring down at folders and phones, doing what people instinctively do when they realize they've just watched something they weren't supposed to see. Charles, according to these accounts, said nothing back. No defense, no pushback, just a slow physical collapse into himself, shoulders down, color gone from his face. When it ended, Camilla reportedly left the room first, and Charles remained seated for a noticeably long stretch, like he needed a minute before he could function again. It's that detail, the stillness afterward, that makes the story land differently than typical palace gossip. It doesn't read like something invented for shock value. It reads like something that actually happened to somebody. Here's where the story takes its first real turn. One aide who witnessed the incident reportedly decided this wasn't something that could go through normal palace reporting channels. Instead of writing it up as a standard incident log, they took it straight to Prince William's office at Kensington Palace, and not with a quick verbal summary either. According to insider claims, what landed on William's desk was a full evidentiary file, audio recordings with timestamps, a list of witnesses willing to go on record, and a detailed written account of the entire incident. That's not a complaint. That's a case being built. Whoever compiled that file had clearly made a decision that the normal system wasn't going to fix this, and that the only person with enough authority to actually act was the heir himself. William reportedly went through every page that same night, and the deeper he read, the angrier he apparently became. For years, insiders say he'd kept a civil distance with Camilla, not out of any real warmth, but because keeping the peace mattered more than personal feelings. This file allegedly broke that restraint completely. One source close to William put it this way: this wasn't just about someone insulting his father. It was about seeing in black and white exactly what his father had been enduring in silence. By morning, William was reportedly already working the phones, quietly pulling staff into one-on-one conversations, gathering additional context, and starting to build something bigger than a single complaint. That's not an emotional reaction. That's someone shifting into strategy mode, which tracks with how people who worked alongside William consistently describe him: calm on the surface, calculated underneath, and fast once he commits to a course of action. Within days, according to these accounts, Camilla began noticing a change she couldn't quite pin down at first. Meetings she used to run started happening without her. Decisions that once required her input were being finalized elsewhere. One aide described it as watching someone lose their footing without ever being pushed, which is actually a very accurate description. of how influence dies in institutions like this. It's rarely loud. It's not a public firing or a dramatic confrontation. It's a slow withdrawal of access until one day the person realizes the room simply doesn't need them anymore. And that's allegedly exactly what started happening to Camilla, quietly, deliberately, and without a single public statement being made. Now, here's the part of the story that gives it real weight, because up to this point, it's mostly staff testimony and second-hand accounts. But sources claim that within 48 hours, 6 additional staff members from Clarence House, Highgrove, and St. James's Palace came forward independently with their own histories. This wasn't people trying to pile on. According to these reports, some of them had stayed quiet for over 10 years. One former event planner reportedly described a consistent pattern. Any occasion that centered William or Catherine instead of Camilla would somehow get disrupted or redirected at the last minute. Another staffer recalled a 2024 planning session where Camilla allegedly slammed a folder down and told the room not to forget who the real power in that building actually was. And during coronation prep in 2023, she reportedly told a member of the design team that without her, Charles would just be filling a seat. If these accounts hold any water, this stops looking like a single bad moment and starts looking like a sustained behavior pattern, spanning years and multiple departments, all independently describing the same dynamic. One former press staffer reportedly said that once you laid all these stories side by side, something clicked. Individually, they seemed like isolated incidents, but together they formed a clear and consistent shape. She ran things through fear, this person allegedly said, which is a striking claim to make about someone who technically has zero constitutional authority. But anyone who has spent time in institutional settings knows that formal power and real influence are not the same thing. You don't need a title to control a room if enough people are afraid of the consequences of crossing you. And according to these sources, that fear was already starting to shift direction. People who had once been loyal to Camilla out of necessity were reportedly stepping back and distancing themselves the moment they realized speaking up wouldn't cost them anything. One longtime aide allegedly said that when William's initial report started circulating internally, it was like a switch flipped. Suddenly it felt safe to say what people had wanted to say for years. That's a telling detail because it suggests silence wasn't about loyalty. It was about fear that nothing would ever actually change. Then comes the moment that reportedly shifted everything. A private, unscheduled breakfast between Charles and William at Highgrove, deliberately kept off the official calendar. No press, no aides nearby, just father and son in a sunroom that once served as the setting for bedtime stories decades earlier. According to insider accounts, this wasn't a casual family catch-up. Charles allegedly opened up completely for the first time, describing years of being belittled in private, of being cut down whenever George or Catherine came up in conversation, of being spoken to dismissively, even with staff present. And then, according to these claims, he said something that, if true, reframes the entire story. I told myself she was the one who changed. The truth is, I changed myself just to survive her. The staff member who happened to be nearby reportedly overheard William go completely silent for several long seconds before responding firmly. That ends now. You're still the king. Looking back, staff had apparently noticed warning signs building for months. Charles skipping events without explanation, leaving formal functions early, seeming distant and withdrawn in ways that didn't quite match his usual public composure. One aide recalled a moment in early spring when Charles left a meeting after less than 20 minutes and was later found alone in his study, visibly shaken. At the time, everyone assumed it was stress or fatigue. In hindsight, given everything now being alleged, it reads very differently. According to these accounts, William stood, walked around the table, and placed a hand on his father's shoulder. Charles reportedly looked up and said, "Just 5 words, do whatever needs to be done." If that exchange actually happened, it gave William something far more powerful than any file of evidence ever could: direct permission from the king himself to intervene, not as a concerned son, but as the one person positioned to actually fix what had been quietly breaking for years. Within a day, William reportedly convened an emergency meeting of the Crown Council, arriving with the complete case, witness statements, recordings, timelines, everything cross-verified. One senior official present said they had never seen him operate with that level of focus, no hesitation, no deliberation out loud, just complete clarity about what needed to happen next. Another council member recalled William telling the room plainly that this wasn't about punishing anyone, it was about protecting the institution and the man carrying its weight. According to these sources, the vote that followed was unanimous. All 12 members, representing England, Scotland, Wales, and the Commonwealth Secretariat, agreed that Camilla's ceremonial functions would be suspended immediately. She would retain the title of Queen Consort by marriage, but in practical terms, her active role within the monarchy was over. No further public engagements, no royal appearances. Long per seat beside Charles at the state opening of Parliament would reportedly pass to Princess Anne, and formal paperwork began transferring her 26 patronages to other family members. One council member reportedly remarked that this was completely without precedent, a working royal losing all functional authority, not through scandal, divorce, or resignation, but through a formal institutional decision. By evening, William's private secretary reportedly delivered the official notice to Clarence House in person. Camilla allegedly refused to even open it, telling a member of her household she wouldn't give anyone the satisfaction of a reaction. That night, palace insiders described the mood as unusually still, tense, but not chaotic, like something overdue had finally happened. One longtime courtier, who had served under multiple monarchs, reportedly called it long overdue correction. William made no public statement. He didn't need one. The institution had already spoken through action. Then the changes started showing up publicly, quietly at first, in places most people wouldn't think to check. Around a week later, royal watchers began noticing edits across the monarchy's official web presence. Camilla's biography, photographs, and title references were being altered overnight. Her listed role, once reading Queen Consort, public representative of the Crown, was reportedly simplified down to wife of King Charles III. That's not a small edit. That's an institution publicly redefining someone's entire status through nothing more than a line of text. One communications expert described it as watching a public erasure happen in slow motion, methodical, deliberate, spreading across every digital platform the palace controlled. According to later reports, the final phase followed shortly after. Camilla was reportedly relocated from Clarence House to a smaller property in Wiltshire, previously used to house retired staff. Her personal team was cut from nearly 20 people down to 4. Her protection detail was scaled back to minimal rotating coverage. Every upcoming appearance, a literacy gala, a gala dinner for the arts, a planned overseas visit, was quietly cancelled with no replacement scheduled. Officially, the explanation was rest. Privately, nobody inside the palace reportedly believed that for a second. One aide put it plainly. This wasn't a break, this was removal. Longer, Camilla reportedly reached out multiple times, asking to resume even limited duties, offering to work privately without public visibility. Every request was allegedly denied. Her correspondence was rerouted through Charles's office, cutting off direct communication entirely. One staffer said the decision had been made clear internally. There would be no reversal, no path back to her previous role. This wasn't a temporary step back, it was permanent. Charles, according to these accounts, said nothing publicly, but privately seemed worn down by the entire situation. During one reported phone call, Camilla allegedly pleaded with him not to let her be erased. His response, according to the source, was quiet but final. I can't protect what's already been broken. Meanwhile, William and Catherine's public standing reportedly climbed sharply. A widely cited polling figure put William's approval near 88%, and Catherine's close behind at 84%, numbers not seen in decades. International invitations reportedly began going directly to the Prince and Princess of Wales, bypassing Camilla altogether. During a climate summit in Geneva, William was reportedly seen in extended private conversation with a sitting head of government, with insiders noting that protocol had quietly shifted to place him ahead of certain members of his own father's team. Charles, meanwhile, was reportedly caught between two impossible positions: the woman he'd spent decades with and the son who had acted to protect an institution larger than either of them. He was described as carrying visible weight, spending long stretches alone, rereading the statement William had delivered to the council. He allegedly wanted to speak up for Camilla publicly, but understood that doing so risked undoing everything and destabilizing the monarchy at a moment it could least afford it. William hadn't broken protocol. Everything had gone through proper channels with institutional backing. Undoing it now would look far worse than letting it stand. Charles's own health reportedly began showing strain during this period, visibly thinner, slower in his movements, quieter in meetings. Palace physicians reportedly recommended he step back and rest, but he refused, apparently afraid that once he paused, he wouldn't have the strength to return. Then, according to these reports, in the weeks that followed, Charles made what insiders call the most significant decision of his reign. He gathered his closest advisors and placed a handwritten letter on the table in front of them. "This is the hardest thing I've ever put into words," he reportedly said. The letter confirmed his decision to step back from active royal duties immediately, retaining his title as king, while handing day-to-day operational control to William. Sources describe weeks of quiet planning behind this decision, with Charles reportedly concluding that his reign had been permanently altered by everything that had unfolded, and that the only responsible path forward was to hand the reins to someone the public already trusted. Sometimes the strongest thing a monarch can do, one royal historian reportedly observed, is recognize the moment to step aside. The announcement, once it went public, reportedly dominated headlines within hours. News coverage across networks shifted immediately. Government officials issued statements of support almost immediately. Charles reportedly called Camilla personally before the announcement went public, a conversation described as lasting well over 2 hours, difficult and emotional, but according to one family insider, necessary for both of them to find some kind of closure. They'd both known this moment was coming, the source said. They just hadn't expected it this soon. In the days that followed, William reportedly established a new operational base at St. James's Palace, while Catherine began absorbing major patronages left vacant by the transition. The monarchy's official website was reportedly restructured almost immediately, with William and Catherine featured prominently on the homepage, while Charles appeared in a smaller, more ceremonial section. What had looked, just months earlier, like an institution on the verge of instability, reportedly emerged from this period stronger and more publicly popular than it had been in years, not because of scandal, but because of what many are calling decisive, careful leadership under pressure. Then came a moment that reignited public interest all over again. Weeks after the transition, William sat for his first major interview since taking on expanded responsibilities. At one point, almost offhandedly, he mentioned that his father seemed noticeably more at peace living on his own these days. It was a small comment, delivered casually, but the reaction online was anything but small. Analysts who reviewed the clip noted it wasn't just what he said, it was the deliberate way he said it, understated but clearly intentional. Speculation about Charles and Camilla's living situation had already been circulating, and this comment seemed to confirm rather than deny it. Had William wanted to shut the rumors down, he easily could have said something reassuring about their relationship. He reportedly chose not to. That single comment sent royal watchers into overdrive, with photographers stationed near every known royal residence and every public appearance scrutinized like evidence in an ongoing investigation. And for long-time observers, this moment carried an unmistakable echo. Decades earlier, Diana had reportedly lived through her own period of quiet isolation, while Charles's attention was elsewhere. Now, some are pointing out an almost uncomfortable symmetry, with Charles allegedly experiencing something strikingly similar to what he once put someone else through. What goes around comes around, one widely shared post put it. Camilla, who once stayed in the background during the Diana years, was now reportedly being seen out in public, while Charles remained largely out of view. Whether every single detail here holds up under scrutiny or not, the fact that this story has spread this widely and resonated this deeply says something on its own about the appetite people have for stories about power, consequence, and a family that the public still can't stop watching.